There's a distinct notion that you have to be aware of, because once you apply that self-perpetual motion, and that harmony takes over, becomes self-perpetual, because that harmony is based in something that you're literally discovering in each step of the way. And it's in accordance with the universe, because the cosmos are basically lining up for you to walk down the path and the line and the lane that was established for you before the foundation of time. Because this is basically a visitation into the time realm from the eternal realm. So you're trying to understand exactly who you are in a physical format, because that physical format is an extension of the spiritual format. It's a copy, it's a translation, it's an interpretation. And you also have to understand that it's a constant reinterpretation of the same thing. And that's what that perpetual harmony is. You just literally have to let go and let God. And speaking of God, what I'm trying to say is you have to understand that it's really not you that's expressing yourself, it's the universe expressing itself. Thus, understand that it's God, because God is, and the universe simply is. So if you are, and you are, and you is, and you are, it is, because you are simply is. And the fact that you're flowing with that harmony, the fact that you're flowing with that perpetual harmony and that self-perpetual awareness that you reach when you're flowing in that harmony, there's an accordance that you begin to realize. And that accordance is understanding that you are a part of a universe. You're part of a collective group. You're in between the Alpha and the Omega. So the universe is basically expressing itself. Ultimately understanding that it's God Himself expressing Himself through Himself, that which is the vessel called man. Filmmaking is something that you adapt to, and it's something that you're constantly discovering, because it's basically putting the camera in different angles, different positions, and getting creative with it, and understanding that there are infinite possibilities in filmmaking. And the fact is that there's not necessarily a law or a rule that you have to follow. There's obviously something that's traditional, that's universally accepted. That way you're basically sort of sneaking into people's perspective and allowing them to gradually grow into your own vision. And that's understandable, but you have to understand the essence behind filmmaking, because filmmaking is basically, literally, again, letting go and letting God. Because in this case, you're finding every moment to be a surprise, except when you do find it, that element of surprise is not necessarily exciting anymore, because as soon as it happens, you're like, oh, I knew that, you know what I mean? So you have to understand that the foundation literally discovers itself every single moment. So when you decide to put the camera overhead, or when you put it on the side, or when you put it down low or something, and then you combine it together, you realize that sequential continuity, or lack thereof, is a basic foundation of how you make films. And that's basically what it is. The camera is just an interpretation of your own perspective. It's an interpretation of your vision. And the vision is to literally let go and have infinite possibilities and become this universal foundation in one little screen, one little projected format that allows itself to express the infinite possibilities of endless and limitless continuity. Now, faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things unseen. So if it's substantial, you understand that a substance is two or more compounds, and if it's substantial, that means it's feasible. It's something that's almost concrete. You can literally touch it, like the wind you can't see, but you know it's there. And if it's also the evidence of things unseen, then that makes it that there's also proof for it. So if at one point something that didn't exist in another second does, because of the perception of the created concept that basically erupts in your mind, and once you grab hold of that revealed knowledge or that idea, and then all of a sudden, if you get a picture, for example, and then you decide to draw it, now it's not necessarily invisible anymore, it's on paper, so you can see it. It was once unseen, now it's seen. It was once invisible, now it's visible. So you have to understand that faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things unseen. So hope means that it's substantial. It means that it's real. That you can literally touch it. It's just a matter of time before it manifests, because it has to go through the process of conception. So you plant the seed of that idea that's basically planted in you. It comes from God, or if it comes from somebody else's revelation, it's still an idea that's going to inevitably grow, because nothing exists if it's not imagined first. I mean, if you imagine it, it means it's somewhere, somehow, it's going to be able to manifest itself. And the idea is to remain in faith and hope, and constantly remind the mind that it's substantial, and that at some point, in a matter of time, at a due season, it's going to come to pass, and it's going to come to life and ultimately manifest itself. That way you'll be able to see it in the physical and then realize that it was once in the spiritual. The intricate perspective of something that's founded is basically incorruptible, and once that incorruption is corrected through a collection of thoughts, the idea becomes feasible, and that feasible idea is illustrated and graphically projected through an orchestrated path. And the static that constantly keeps coming back, and the static that constantly tries to stop the flow of the foundation, becomes something that's hindering the infatuated assumption that's assertively including the defined aspect of something that's inevitably invincible, and the invincible inevitability of that productive, constructive, and construct structure of the raw material that matters means that the idea becomes scientifically involved, and you're literally letting go and listening to these listening to these thoughts. And in between thoughts, when you don't know what to say, you let go and you allow the Spirit to speak, because language doesn't necessarily mean something that's a sense or something that's a sensibility behind something that has to have some sort of rule or law or conduct, because now you're understanding the flow of nature. When you become just like water, and you literally become whatever it is that you are, or become whatever it is that you find yourself in. So you literally flow. What you also have to understand is that Jesus is the antidote. He's the door. He's the actual key that unlocks that freedom. Because sin creates that static that puts one into bondage. And when you're in bondage, you don't have the liberty to become self-perpetual with the actual universe, so that you can let go and literally let God. Because now you're hindered with that bondage, because you keep trying to unravel and unlock things through a self-effort access, but that's not going to work, because the only way that you're to be able to understand is through God Himself, and God is creating Himself into a man so that He can give you the keys to the door, and He called Himself Jesus, which means God with us, Emmanuel, God with us. So you have to understand that Jesus is the antidote. He's the key that unlocks that door. He's the only one that's going to give you that infinite power, that infinite liberty that you're looking for. Otherwise, you're always going to be stuck into bondage. And so understanding that Jesus is God manifested, so that you can relate to God, so that you can relate to the universe and understand how the cosmos work and understand who you are. Because you're an extension of the Petra, you're an extension of you're a small rock from the big rock. And you have to understand that Jesus is that big rock, is going to hand you the key, and it's only through Him. He's the door that's going to lead you into that, and that's going to lead you into that free access, and that's going to lead you into that complete freedom, so that there's no more static. So even though you missed the mark, even though you have these, you have these things that are trying to block you from obtaining your freedom, when you apply that door, when you apply that key, or when you apply that antidote, that medicine, that which is Jesus, then all of a sudden everything becomes self-perpetual. It becomes that harmony, that accordance comes back into play, and now you're able to do and express yourself without any guilt, any shame, anything holding you back, and you're free from bondage.